Yeah, I think it's a while since we've talked about My Hero Academia. Hey YouTube, Joe Boy here. It's been about 6 months since the last time that we talked about Boku no Hero Academia. I am super behind. I do want to talk about My Hero Academia chapter 226, but before we get into that, there's just so much that's happened that I feel like I really want to talk about before we get into chapter by chapter reviews. So today I want to discuss whether or not Deku is already or will be soon too strong. So this is something that I saw people discuss several months ago because of recent developments in the story, and I just want to throw in my 2 cents onto this because I do think that it is important and interesting. So we've already known for some time that the power scaling in MHA is kind of weird. If only for the reason that it's Deku's quirk, One for All. We've seen its final form. It's just ridiculously overpowered. You don't need to discuss it that much. I mean, it's very blatantly obvious when you watch All Might fight. He's head and shoulders above, as far as any singular quirk, anything else that anybody can throw at him. With the exception of very, very niche quirks that can counter it, like Aizawa or All for One. I can see no future in which Todoroki, even in his final form, better than Endeavor, would ever be able to compete with All Might. It's just not close. So I think most of us have assumed that at some point in time Deku will reach All Might level, maybe not within the context of the story, but eventually you figure he'll be able to do everything that All Might was able to do, plus additionally more because the quirk does get more powerful over time. And so, it's kind of like, what else do you need besides this quirk and training it? It truly is an unfair advantage. All Might was already capable of defeating All for One, even before Deku inherited the quirk, and it supposedly is going to have an even higher ceiling. So yeah, I think that this is what most of us was thinking even before it was revealed in some of the recent chapters, that Deku, through One for All, has access to 6 additional unique quirks that even All Might never had. How broken is that? So One for All was able to absorb, in a way that is not entirely described, and I think is a question in of itself, all the unique quirks from all the previous users who actually had one. And so, it being 6, we assume Deku doesn't have a quirk, All Might didn't have a quirk, and the first user's quirk is sort of tied in with our original conception of what One for All was, so we basically ignore that one. And so while a lot of people may have been wondering why exactly Horikoshi decided to include this in the story, why it might have been necessary, how it affects the story's power scaling, which is important in a shonen fighting manga, but my opinion, guys, just to say something here at the beginning without getting into the reasons why, I think that this is great, absolutely great for the story and necessary, and we'll get into all the various reasons why. But I do think that this is something that should be looked upon favorably and for readers to get excited about. I don't think that it's going to do anything negatively towards the story. But yeah, let's start this conversation and look at Final Form Deku and why it might be necessary to have, potentially additional arsenal of tools on top of One for All in order to beat whatever the final boss is in the story. Beat Shigaraki, I assume that's going to be the final boss. Why all of this might be necessary. And to start off with, guys, I just think that Shigaraki, by the time that we suppose that he will inherit All for One's quirk, it will actually be necessary for Deku to be even stronger than All Might. The reason I say this is because it's very clear that All for One, even up until the present day in the story, is still looking for quirks in order to make him stronger. It's stated specifically in the story that it was unfortunate that he didn't discover super regeneration before his fight with All Might, as it doesn't exactly fix him after he was damaged, which was unfortunate. If he had that quirk before fighting All Might, his regeneration would have been so strong he could potentially have taken whatever All Might threw at him. That's just one example of a quirk that All for One didn't have in his original fight that he got defeated with All Might, that we would assume that Shigaraki would then have later and make him slightly or significantly stronger. And I think that this is added on top of the fact that I think at some point in the My Hero Academia story, once Shigaraki inherits All for One, or All for One breaks out of prison, however the story goes, there's going to be an arc centering around them looking for, discovering a particular quirk that they want to take and use and will be significant in the final battle. Just to throw out an example or an idea of what this quirk could be or who this quirk could be from, I mean, look at Eri. Eri seems like a prime candidate of somebody who wants their quirk taken. A quirk that is incredibly overpowered, especially if you use it in conjunction, as All For One would do, with many, many other quirks. You know, I'll be honest, guys, I think that this just makes too much sense in the story from All For One's perspective, because Eri does have the ability to restore All For One to his original form because she can manipulate time. This is a quirk that does something that no other quirk that All For One has discovered has been able to do. This is something that he's been looking to find. You could totally have an arc in the future of the My Hero Academia story where, for whatever reason, it's decided or they discover Eri and they want to take her quirk, and then that becomes a complete game changer, requiring Deku to be, again, significantly stronger than All Might ever was. So yeah, do these 6 additional quirks on top of everything that we have known previously about One For All make Deku too strong for the potential endgame of the story? No, I don't think so. And I mean, frankly, guys, we don't actually know what these 6 quirks are. I mean, we have hints, we've seen an example of one of them, but the others are completely ambiguous, and we don't actually know how much of a difference it would make. One thing that I want to make abundantly clear, guys, is that in terms of actual fighting, you don't really need any other quirk other than One For All. It gives you speed at an absurd level, it gives you strength at an absurd level, and I really just wonder how much these quirks are actually going to help Deku in a pure fighting situation. I honestly view them, obviously we don't know, but I see them more as like tools at Deku's disposal to make fight interesting, to be able to counter very niche scenario. But I mean, how much difference are they really going to make when your quirk by itself is already it's so stupidly overpowered in combat? So just as an example, we've already seen the first of these 6 quirks. It just appears to me to be the perfect quirk in order to save everybody around Deku. If a civilian were in danger, if another hero was in danger, Deku could use this without actually having to move himself. He could use them at the same time as One For All to protect people who are in danger. But yeah, honestly, there's so much possibility with 5 quirks given how creative Horikoshi is, but I just kind of see these other quirks falling in a similar line. Maybe not something that makes Deku stronger in a one-on-one fight necessarily, or not too much difference, but would make him a much better hero, or have very unique usage. So I'm thinking, you know, along the lines of maybe like a sensory quirk, or a stealth-related quirk, possibly a quirk that improves Deku's defenses, or durability. But yeah, guys, I'll just say that I'm super excited to see, you know, the specificities of these 6 quirks, including the one that we've seen, but, you know, hasn't been fully fleshed out yet. There's just so much possibility, and this leads into another reason why I think that everyone should be excited for this development. I'm just going to throw out a hypothetical, right? We're going forward in the future of the My Hero Academia story. If the only quirk Deku ever had was One For All, then how is it that he's supposed to defeat every successive stronger opponent? Frankly, guys, there is just a limit to what Horikoshi would be able to achieve with it being that way. Well, Deku unlocks the next bit of percent. He's at 30%, he's at 40%, he's at 50%. Wow, this is getting really repetitive. Oh, look, you know, he's in combination with another powered quirk that happens to, you know, work perfectly with his to delve into that next tier of power. Or look, he has certain allies that are surrounding him against this particular villain, which happen to, you know, mash up just so perfectly that they're barely able to defeat him. Up until now, I think that you can see very clearly where Horikoshi wanted to go with One For All. It started with mastering the quirk itself, just to simply be able to use it without harming himself. We're way past that now. Deku went from 5%, now he's up to 20%. From this point, it's very linear. It's just unlocking that next bit of percent that Deku could use without damaging himself. It's not very interesting by itself. We've already seen him use Eri to be able to tap into 100%. I don't expect to see a situation like that, exactly like that again, unless Eri happens to be there. But again, that's just repetitive. We've seen that Horikoshi has gone from Deku using his arms, now he's using his legs. I mean, you know, what else is he going to throw at an opponent? You know, is he going to go with an ab attack next? Are we going to see the 6-pack of Flex Shockwave? Like I said, there's a limit. If you're talking about good design of a main character and a shonen fighting manga, I'll use One Piece as an example because I talk about One Piece most. It's very important to design your main character with the right powers that give you, as an author, a diversity of things that you can throw into the story to make each fight different, interesting, and new. For One Piece, you know, you started off with just, you know, a rubber boy. He can throw, you know, stretchy arms and stretchy kicks, and then you go from there throughout the story of One Piece, and it's gotten incredibly complex. And mind you, compared with other shonen manga, One Piece's strength is not fighting. You have all sorts of different forms, some of which that Luffy can tap into at any given moment, some which are specific to an arc, and you have the addition of Haki in all of its various forms and caveats and abilities. And then you compare it to My Hero Academia, where, from the beginning of the story, if we didn't know anything about these quirks, essentially, Deku would just punch harder, he would smash harder. Just frankly, guys, it isn't a great design for a shonen manga. If this is the only power that Deku would ever have, then Horikoshi would have had to rely heavily on the supporting cast and the supporting characters to make battles interesting and fresh all the way up to the end of the story, because it's through these other newer quirks that you can diversify the battles. So yeah, these 6 quirks should excite us, because it just means that in terms of the future battles of My Hero Academia, they're going to be really, really cool, really interesting, really new. It's not going to be overly rehashed every time, because Deku hasn't even unlocked or mastered the first quirk, and we haven't seen what these other 6 quirks are. They will be introduced at various times, and he'll slowly come to be able to use them better at various points in the story, find new ways of using them just the same as One for All, which means that frankly, the battles of My Hero Academia with Deku are gonna be great. That's basically what this means. And I think that this also leads me into another reason why I believe that these quirks are necessary. There's gonna be a lot of opponents that Deku is going to fight from between now and final boss. And if they are anywhere near the level of Overhaul, who was overpowered, Deku needed Eri, Hack's plot device, in order to use 100% of his ability in order to beat Overhaul. I assume that there's many characters, many fights left to be had of that level, and Deku can't automatically jump to 100% every single time. It's just not realistic. Most likely what I think is going to happen is that Horikoshi is going to give Deku, of these 6 quirks, in order, whichever one that he absolutely needs in a given fight, in order to just barely defeat whoever his opponent is. They won't make Deku overpowered, they will make Deku just strong enough, or have just the right ability. These quirks will become vital to Deku as a utility, as a resource at his disposal in any given situation. But I think that the most interesting aspect of this discussion isn't really about Deku versus any particular opponent that he might have sooner and later in the story. It's about really how he matches up with his classmates, because for me, and I think for the story, that is of equal importance. I think that you can't just, it's kind of like the Dragon Ball, the Goku effect, where Goku, he completely outshined every other Z fighter. And as you progress through the story, the Z fighters became almost fodder, and anytime that they actually did something, you just wondered if that made sense. Were they really gonna be stronger? When you could see Tien fight against Cell or Master Roshi later on in Dragon Ball Super, I mean, it's hard to believe that, because they can't be that strong enough. Todoroki and Bakugo are Deku's contemporaries. They are his rivals, and they should follow a similar growth path as him. Deku will obviously become the #1 hero, and I think by the time the final battle arrives, he may surpass them significantly, but until we get to that final battle, Todoroki and Bakugo should be at least as significant as Deku. This may end up being Horikoshi's greatest challenge, and the area of the story that I wouldn't say that I'm most concerned about, but has the most room for concern. I mean, it's already been suggested in the story that Deku at 20% might already be both stronger and faster than Bakugo. We assume that Deku won't stay at 20% forever until the final battle. He'll get to 25, 30, 40, maybe 50%. Yeah, how can you reasonably grow Bakugo to maintain his status as a rival throughout it all? This was something that I meant to mention earlier, but I forgot, but I'm going to bring it up now in terms of endgame Deku. Not only is he going to have to be strong enough to defeat potentially a stronger version of All For One, but there's also all of these additional factors such as quirk enhancement, drugs, and any other underground substance or material that Horikoshi decides to introduce in the story, the growth one as well, that could play a role that could make in-game or even middle-game Deku have to be even stronger. The same would have to apply to Bakugo, and the same would have to apply to Todoroki. So while Deku might have, which is effectively limitless potential, I don't think that Todoroki and Bakugo are the same. Bakugo could obviously improve his quirk, the same with Todoroki. You could fire hotter, cold, ice colder, Bakugo explosion better. The area of effect of these quirks larger. But as Horikoshi, you have to sell this, make this believable and not just feel, like a plot convenience. But honestly, this is kind of how I see this going into the story. Horikoshi will delve into how quirks over time have been getting stronger. We don't actually have a real limit to the capabilities of Bakugo's and Todoroki's quirks, so they'll just continue to grow, and the justification will be, well, this is the direction that quirks of the world are going in general. But yeah, I don't think that this is great. It's reasonable, but it's not great, but it just seems to be all that Horikoshi can really do. For Bakugo, at the very least, he has to be as fast as Deku in order to be competitive with him. And his speed is related to his burst power, his blast power. That's what propels him. Stronger blasts means that Bakugo will be faster, although it will strain his body more. And obviously the same would apply to Bakugo's, the damage that he is able to deal. If his blast gets stronger, he can do more damage, as Deku does the same with One for All. I guess what I just don't want to see, which doesn't currently make any sense to me, is we've seen All Might fight One for All at the time max potential. Deku may even surpass that, and I just can't see Bakugo's quirk growing to the point that he's even slightly competitive with that. Even if you could reason it, I just don't think that it makes sense within the world of My Hero Academia. One for All is too strong. The only out here I see is Bakugo potentially using quirk enhancement, which, theoretically would make him significantly stronger. I don't know what that would do to his body, but okay, that would work, but that's not something that Bakugo would use, or should reasonably use, for the rest of his heroing career. I don't want to see Deku for the remainder of the story completely outclass both Todoroki and Bakugo like that, which leads me to, I guess, my last point, which is, I think that My Hero Academia is going to end within the timeline of the story sooner than maybe originally we might have suspected. We're not going to see 25-year-old Deku and 25-year-old Bakugo in their primes fighting. That to me should lead into Dragon Ball and Goku type power scaling, which I don't like. As long as Deku is continually within the growth stages all the way up to the end of the story, growth stages that can be matched by Todoroki and Bakugo, even if Deku one day eclipses them, is alright. So yeah, I think that what we should guess is that the final battle of My Hero Academia within its own timeline is going to be probably maybe within a year from now. Not enough time for Deku to leave Bakugo and Todoroki in the dust for an extended period of the story. Through this time period, they will all get strong enough to make contributions in all the major battles to come. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. Obviously, with Deku already, on an absurd growth path, plus 6 new quirks, left a lot of people discussing, how strong is Deku, and is he going to become too strong too quickly? But I really don't fear that. I think that Horikoshi is going to handle it appropriately, and so far as handling power scaling, I think that he's done an excellent, masterful job. But yeah, as always, let me know what you think. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.